One of the things I love about this desk, right time in the morning, sunlight just straight through the window. Of course I can never see my computer screen when it's like that, but it just feels nice to be, blessed by. No, actually, I'm not being blessed by Apollo. There is a big grey cloud coming over the sun. I've been to London. A little bit of a holiday. Went around the British Museum, the Tower of London, did my Richard III outside the Globe. That was fun.
Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this. What month is this? October. To the tower.
And I bought far too many books. How many, you ask? I was in London, 4.5 days? And yeah, I've got a problem. Not as big as a problem I had getting these home in a tiny bag. So the first one I bought, wide-eyed, rural, from the sticks. Can now actually count myself as Welsh because I've been here that long. Country boy, wide-eyed, wandering through the city, looking for Covent Garden, singing songs from My Fair Lady, and I happen across an Oxfam bookshop, where I bought this one. This is Christopher Isherwood, A Meeting by the River. I did my master's thesis partly on Christopher Isherwood. I do find him a bit hit and miss in places. He wrote some really, really fantastic stuff. I love Goodbye to Berlin and Christopher and His Friends. Wasn't so keen on A Single Man or Mr. Norris Changes Trains. But this one, I'm actually really enjoying it. I'm 60 pages from the end currently with this one. Breaking a long silence, Oliver, a young Englishman, writes to his elder brother, Patrick. Oliver is living in a Hindu monastery and has decided to take his final monastic vows. Patrick, a successful publisher and married man, with a skeleton in his cupboard, decides to visit Oliver in India to persuade him not to renounce the world. The brothers' confrontation is a psychologically intense conflict, and yet comic too, resulting in both men being subtly altered by their encounter. I think it's one of Isherwood's lesser-known works. It's partly prose, partly written in the style of letters, and I think that makes it really stand out. I will review this in my end of season reading review thing, but really liking this. Oxfam bookshop, don't know which road it was on, but it was somewhere near Covent Garden. It was between Covent Garden and the British Museum. So next up we have Uncommon People by David Hepworth. As a cultural historian, this one really appealed to me. I bought it from a place called Judd Books, which was on Marchmont Street near the British Library. Fantastic place. Found it, probably 5 o'clock in the evening, an hour before it closed. Bookshelves so high that even if I was 6 foot, I wouldn't have been able to reach the top shelf. I couldn't even see what was on the top shelf. This one was like low down, shall we say. It was like on a table. But I saw this and it really, really appealed to me as a cultural historian. The age of the rock star, like the age of the cowboy, has passed. Like the cowboy, the idea of the rock star lives on in our imaginations. What do we see in them? Swagger, recklessness, sexual charisma. Damn the torpedoes, self-belief. A certain way of carrying themselves, good hair. Interesting shoes. Talent we wished we had. In Uncommon People, David Hepworth zeroes in on defining moments and turning points in the lives of 40 rock stars from 1955 to 1995, taking us on a journey to burst 100 myths and create 100 more. Social, cultural history. Looking forward to reading this once I've finished my books on spying, which I'm reading at the minute. Because I've read a tiny little bit of it, and it seemed very fascinating. I went on a bit of a literary tour, and I found myself in Charles Dickens' house. So of course I had to buy a Charles Dickens book, didn't I? Very thin one, to be read at dusk. A collection of 3 short stories, which includes the title story, The Signalman, and The Trial for Murder. I think I'm going to read this one over Christmas, I think. Just because, like, The Signalman, it's a ghost story. Ghost stories are good for Christmas. Or at least Charles Dickens' ghost stories are good for Christmas. So these next 4 books I got from a specialist bookshop. Now I know that YouTube basically suppresses anything to do with this bookshop's specialism. So I'm just going to call it The Word. How do I know that YouTube suppresses this specialism? Well, I made a poetry video, click the card if you want to see it, which was basically about this topic. It got suppressed, I believe, because it was, explicitly about this topic. I've done videos about this topic in the past. Some of them have done okay. Most of them, yeah. YouTube actively suppresses this kind of content. So I'm just going to call this bookshop The Word. So one of the books I got from there was Bored Werewolf. It's a shame that YouTube suppresses this kind of content, because I would really love to promote this place a lot more, because it's a fantastic little bookshop, and it really does deserve quite a bit of support. It's a fantastic little place. I got some pin badges, some badges from there as well. I think that was from a similar themed museum, that one. I did definitely get, there you go. That is the name of the bookshop. Right, I got that from there. Anyway, where was I? Bored Werewolf by Tony Santarella. Brian, an aimless slacker in his 20s, works double shifts at his waiter job, never cleans his apartment, and gets blackout drunk with his restaurant comrades. He's been struggling to manage his transition to adulthood almost as much as his monthly transitions to a werewolf. Really, he is not great at the whole werewolf thing, and his recent murderous slip-ups have caught the attention of Tyler, a millennial were-entrepreneur determined to explore exponential growth strategies in the mythological wellness market. Tyler has got a plan, and he wants Brian to be part of it, and weirdly his brand of self-help punditry actually encourages Brian to shape up and stop accidentally marking out bad tippers at the restaurant as potential monthly victims. But as Brian gets closer to Tyler's pack and drifts further away from Nick and Darby, he realises that Tyler's expansion plans are much more nefarious than a little lupine enlightenment. So not only is this about bored werewolves, it's also seems to be a comedy about, like, business gurus and capitalism, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this one. I might start this one next once I've finished what I'm reading now, which is Rick Riordan, Hammer of Four. So I also got from this bookshop The Word, another history book by Chris Bryant, The Glamour Boys, the secret story of the rebels who fought for Britain to defeat... I can't mention his name either because YouTube will suppress the video. So this is about a group of MPs who in the 30s went to Berlin. They were speaking out against government policy at the time, and Chris Bryant is arguing that actually this changed the course of history. Can't say too much about this because, YouTube, freedom of speech, yeah, they don't like certain topics. There are certain words, such as the G word, the Q word, that person's name, that you can't say. Although maybe it's a good thing we don't say his name. Because as we all know, he was an absolute... I'm trying to think of a descriptive word I can use to describe him, which won't get this video suppressed. And I don't think there is one. So also from The Word, I got, this was a second-hand one, Simon Raven, The Feathers of Death. A cavalry regiment in the 1950s sent to suppress rebellion in a African colony. In the aristocratic world of officers and gentlemen, love affairs scarcely raise an eyebrow. But when Lieutenant Alistair Lynch becomes infatuated with an inarticulate young drummer, the tensions with his friends come to a head. Just as his company are besieged by rebel tribesmen, Simon... Oh. That is really badly written. The tensions with his friends come to a head just as his company are besieged by rebel tribesmen. This looks interesting, I think. It's very tiny writing, but yeah, it'd be interesting to read this one, I think. When was this published? Oh, blimey. This was actually published in 1959. So, yeah, that will be very interesting to read, I think. So well done, James. Well done. Well done. So the last book I got from there was another werewolf book, Wereboys. I read most of this while I was in London. It's... well, when I bought it, I didn't actually realise it was going to be so sexy. It's basically... I've just noticed on the back cover there's a very faint watermark of a what looks like a cover template. Basically it just says black dotted line, blue dotted line, white dotted line, yeah. This is very badly written, very badly edited, very badly published. But it was so addictive. It was an absolute joy to read. Who knew I'm into werewolf erotica? Jaymond can't believe that Ricky, the captain of the Stanford swim team, not only wants him on his squad, but also for something more. Much, much, much more. What starts out as a mundane freshman year on campus soon turns into weeks of intense sexual passion and strange supernatural occurrences that only intensify when the moon is full and the wereboys rule the night. So I knew this was going to include, like, some sexy bits. Didn't realise it was going to be as sexy as it was. I thought it was going to be more horror focused, but, you know, I'm not complaining. I enjoyed reading this. Would I recommend it? Well, you can't read highbrow literature all the time. It's complete trash. I realised I didn't mention the name of the author, who is Wolf Hands. It's absolute trash, but I loved it. So whilst I was exploring London, I also went to the University College London campus. I went to visit a archaeology museum there, the Egyptian Archaeology Museum. I went to see the whatchamacallit, the guy, Jeremy Bentham, the guy who is basically a dressed up skeleton with a head in a cabinet, and he's like the guy who came up with the ideas that founded the university, and they keep his body in a glass cabinet. It's as morbid as it sounds. But while I was there, I found they have a Waterstones, a campus Waterstones. And I went in, and it's huge, by the way. It's flipping huge. It's pretty much all academic books in there. They've got some fiction as well, but lots and lots of lovely, lovely academic books. I only bought one from there, though, and that was Bertrand Russell, Portraits from Memory. Memory is a big issue in historical studies at the moment, so I thought this might be, like, useful for my thesis, for my teaching. Okay, my camera card filled up, and now I've got 3 minutes to finish this video. It's all the footage from London, still on the camera. Oops. So, Bertrand Russell, Portraits from Memory, Waterstones, UCL. Loving it so far. So, on my last day, my train was delayed, so I popped into the W.H. Smith in Euston Station, saw this, James O'Brien, How They Broke Britain. This is a signed copy. It's basically about, like, sinister cabal controlling British media and politicians and people like Rupert Murdoch and David Cameron and evil people like Boris Johnson, who are basically self-interested people. Finished this, read through it in, about a week. Really, really, really loved it. The David Cameron chapter made me so angry. I will be going through this in my end of season book review. And onto the final book, which I found again in a charity shop. It was, I know where it was, because there was like a little market there. I think it was Lever Lane, and they had this like food market going on. But there was this Age UK shop on that street, and I went in and found this for my thesis, which is Helen O'Hara, Women versus Hollywood, The Fall and Rise of Women in Film. It's basically about the hidden roles women have played throughout American Hollywood film history. I was reading yesterday about a film called Back to God's Country. Let's just say the stories about that film are incredible. It's one of those stories from history which is... I don't have time now to talk about it, but... Okay. Very quickly. The leading actor died of pneumonia. The book it was based on, the protagonist was a Great Dane. The writer changed that to... The writer of the film changed that to be a woman. And the writer of the original book insisted they film it in the middle of nowhere, in Canada, in the winter. Oh, and the scriptwriter also brought a bear onto the sets of films she worked on. Absolutely, completely crazy. I'm not doing this story justice. Memory card's about to fill up. Shall we say goodbye, Sweep? Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. You're wondering where Sweep came from now, aren't you? That's another story entirely.